What up, bro chachos? How's it going? Look, I just wanted to take a second to make this video about top water baits. There's nothing more exciting than a top water blow up, like you're pulling along some hyacinths or some tules or some hydrilla and poof, you just get this massive blow up 6-7 pounders, or just, you know, man, it's exciting. It's a rush. Your heart gets going, the adrenaline releases, and you know when they hit top water, it's going to be a great fight because they're already being aggressive. Versus like a worm bite. But anyway, I pulled this case out and I thought I would make a video talking about some of my go-to top water baits and what I tend to use the most, and some of the baits that I use but probably don't use as much. We'll just have a conversation about it. So stick around, let's talk about it. So there's definitely tons of top water baits out there. I mean, you got prop baits, buzz baits, frog, spook, whopper plopper, Rapala X wraps, eye loud from Mega Bass. This thing's pretty cool. It's got a square bill for splashing the water. It's got a propeller on the back. It's got really good colors, nice size bait. Or you could even go with like a weightless Gary Yamamoto Cinco or a weightless Gambler Big Easy. So then the question is, what am I throwing out all these things? Am I going with the buzz bait? Am I going with the spook? What am I throwing? Am I going with the frog? I know a lot of people out there would say he's probably throwing the frog. Wrong. As a matter of fact, my go-to top water bait is definitely the whopper plopper. And there's a few reasons for that. One of the main reasons is because it's got treble hooks, which I feel like really increases my odds to get the fish to the boat if it strikes it, right? The second thing is you got this little tail on the end, which basically goes through the water and makes this noise like it trickles water everywhere. It attracts the fish. I guess the third reason is because I can literally swim this like it's a chugger. I can swim this like it's a frog. I can do a slow retrieve. I can just sit there and let it park and just give it pop so it splashes. Or I can do a medium retrieve and get it back to the boat that way. Or you can burn it and just see whatever smashes it. But one of my favorite things to do with this is to pitch it up along the reed lines or on the perimeter of the hydrilla or the mat and just pop it and work it, pop it, work it, pop it. You know what I mean? Like, and watching that thing get hit like that is truly exciting. But if I can't get this through the drilla, which obviously treble hooks, that's a nightmare. So if you can't get that through the drilla, then I'm definitely going with frog. I personally like the chugger frog the most. It's got a little concave mouth. You pull it across, it's just spitting water. It's making a lot of ruckus. Now, a lot of guys out there, including myself, man, I used to be terrible with frog hookups. I used to miss a ton of fish. Like, I probably lost as many as I caught. There is a hack to the frog, and I'm going to give you guys the goods. I'm going to give you the secret, and honestly, I can't take credit for it. This comes from the legend Roland Martin himself. That's where I learned this. But there is a way to modify these hooks, and I'm going to show you how to do this to get more fish. So if you guys can see this, you see how this hook is actually aiming back into the body here? And it's like that on both sides. And you can kind of tell that they kind of aim inwards, and they are dead into the body. So that means that the fish basically has to hit this thing perfect. Now I get that this is soft and it collapses, right? And if you look at this here though, there's not a lot of space and it feels very flat right here, right? So if you get excited and just pull, then you're basically yanking this right out of the fish's mouth. Now I get it, for a lot of people, you like to pull straight up, and that's the only way I'm going to set the hook on a frog. It's vertical. There is no side. I don't do any of the side step or anything like that like I would on a swim bait. But if you don't set the hook just right on these things, and you got to give them a second, right? You got to give them a second. So when you're tossing this out in the water, I usually hold the rod pretty much, I would say at a steep pitch, 80 whatever, and then as soon as it hits, I let the rod start to come down. I try to give them a few seconds to really engulf this thing and then set the hook. But let's get into the modification of how to work this. First thing I do with any frog that I purchase, for the record, is I take some scissors and I shorten up these little strands that come off the back here, these little jig strands. What I do is I actually cut one side a little shorter than the other side. And the reason for that is because when you're pulling, it will actually create kind of like a walk the dog pattern, or at least that's my thought and the science behind it. But to actually modify this, you're going to need some pliers, and you're going to need to basically take the frog and grab it right where it's at the body here. You don't want to get on the, you want to get on the shaft where it's bending. Let me actually switch to this camera here. You'll probably be able to see this better. See right here in the bend here? You want to get right in that bend, and then you want to basically take it, pry it back, maybe get up a little higher to this turn here in the shaft, and pry it back. We basically want to get this hook point off the body, and we want it to be sticking up just a bit, right? So I might actually have to get right into the hook. I don't want to like mess up the barb, but there we go. So there we go. You can actually see right there. Now that hook is off the body right there. See? And then if you see how it's aiming up a little bit versus the other side where it's not. It's still aiming at the body. So, and then the next trick is you just want to kind of aim it out a hair, away from the body. So take your pliers, right, and then just push it to where you're aiming the point of that hook out a bit. That's good. Now we're going to do the other side. Repeat it again. Basically just bend this back, get that hook off the body. Let's see if that's a little better, a little more. And then aim it outwards, right, away from the body. Get it. Don't be scared of it now. Just don't end up with that barb in your hand. You know, like that's the one thing you definitely don't want. Pry it a little more. Nah, a little more. Yeah, I know it's taking me forever, right? Okay, I think that'll do. Yeah, there we go. So now you can see, big difference. See how both of these are now off the body. They're kind of aiming away from the body. And what this does is, once a fish hits this thing and this collapse, you're ready. Look at that, you're ready. And it's not enough, there's not enough hook exposed to really be catching too much going through the lily pads or whatever. And even if you do, you're probably running what, 85-pound braid, 65-pound braid at least on a frog setup. So if you do get stuck, just pull and this thing will rip out. But there's the frog hack. Again, shout out to Roland Martin. I can't take credit for it, man. So that was an awesome discovery. And after I did that myself to all the frogs that I throw, I noticed that my hookup ratio increased dramatically. So if you guys are struggling, maybe that'll help you. But one of the other things that I like doing is the Gambler Big Easy. Like I mentioned before. Now, these are my go-tos, right? I mean, there's tons of top water baits, but these are my go-tos. So, whopper, plopper, frog, obviously, but one of my favorite top water baits of all times is the most versatile bait ever known to man, the Gambler Big Easy. And I say versatile because you can literally throw this thing like it's like a fluke. Like if you, and for people that don't believe me, I've had guys on my boat and they've literally watched me fish this thing and like, Jesus, dude, like you're fishing that thing in the most versatile of ways, right? Like you pitch it like a fluke. You can let it just kind of free fall. You can top water it. It's heavy enough to sink down in the water column of hair. It won't get deep, but I always keep a bead bobber on it. But the reason I love this guy the most out of all of them, now don't get me wrong, like I said, if we're talking edge, if we're talking the edge of the reed line, if we're talking the edge of the hydrilla mat, then, and I can use trebles, whopper plopper it is. Or prop bait, but more than likely I'm going to whopper plopper. And the Big Easy though, you can Texas rig it. So you're hiding the barb, you're hiding the hook in the back of this thing, and it's got a little weight to it. So if you get over some drilla and you want to actually sink into a little hole that's in there, this can drop. I mean, obviously the frog's not going to drop unless the body's filled with water. So you can literally fish this thing, pull it across the lily pads, the hydrilla or whatever, and if there's a hole, let it drop in there. And you can rip them out that way. Honestly, this is one of the most versatile baits ever. I can't big up this thing enough, man. Shout out to Gambler for such a fine bait. 5.25 Big Easy Tennessee Shad, one of my favorites. But yeah, I mean, we're talking dense cover, right? So frog or this is what I would use for dense cover. Outside of that, you know, on the perimeters, definitely whopper plopper. maybe even the iLoud, prop bait. There's tons of choices, devil horse, whatever you want to call it. Look, if I didn't get to a bait that you use, or maybe something that you want to throw into the mix, be sure to drop a comment. Like, let me know what you guys are throwing and what works for you. I don't claim to be a guru. I'm just a guy that likes to fish, bro. So if you know something I don't, or I didn't mention something and you're like, man, he should have said this, please put it in the comments below and let me know what you're tossing. If it's not too much to ask, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Sub the channel. You got nothing to lose, bro chacho. Anyway, hope to see you guys next time. Take care until then. Have fun. Get out there often, and enjoy the water. See you guys next time.